The DP's Lee Jae-myung was in the liberal stronghold of Jeollanam-do province today, stressing the need for balanced regional growth. The PPP's Kim Moon-soo was in the capital, apologizing over the martial law incident as he rolled out his education vision on Teachers' Day. And the Reform Party's Lee Jun-seok was meeting younger voters in Seoul as he had lunch with college students. The two-day meeting of trade ministers from the Asia-Pacific region kicked off today in Korea's Jeju. What's grabbing attention is a series of sideline talks with the U.S. amid the Trump administration's tariff campaign. Russia and Ukraine are sitting down in Istanbul for peace talks over the war that's been dragging on for over 3 years. Direct talks between Putin and Zelensky are unlikely to take place. It's May 15th, 8 p.m. in Seoul. This is Newscenter.
Thank you for joining us. I'm Yoon Min. On the fourth day of official campaigning, Liberal Party candidate Lee Jae-myung continued his trek across the country, this time to his party's stronghold. His message there was directed towards balanced regional growth. Our correspondent Shin Ha-young reports.
After spending the past few days trying to win support in traditionally conservative strongholds, Democratic Party candidate Lee Jae-myung focused on rallying support in his party's stronghold. Lee's campaign on Thursday took him through Jeollanam-do province, including the cities of Gwangyang, Yeosu, Suncheon, and Bokpo. Kicking off his tour of this region, Lee pointed to the concentration of power in the capital area as the biggest problem South Korea was facing. He emphasized balanced regional development, which is one of his 10 major campaign pledges. In line with this, he highlighted fostering the renewable energy industry as a pledge tailored to the Jeollado provinces, saying the southwest coast holds great potential for renewables.
We don't have a clear plan for renewables yet as we move away from fossil fuels due to global warming. Energy prices are likely to go up, so we need to develop our own resources. That's why I think we should actively grow the renewable energy industry, especially in the southwestern coast and Jeollado provinces.
During his visit to Yeosu, Lee outlined his energy plan, pledging to turn the Jeollanam-do coast into a global renewable energy hub by building a so-called energy highway. He said the region has plenty of resources but lacks transmission lines, promising to fix the issue and unlock the area's full energy potential.
Why can't we build a country with balanced regional development where companies come for local renewable energy? With Lee Jae-myung's leadership, we can change the nation, just like we saw in Seongnam and Gyeonggi-do, and just like the DP has changed.
Ahead of his rally in the party's stronghold, he visited Hadong, Gyeongsangnam-do province near the border between Jeollado and Gyeongsang-do provinces. There he met with young people at Hwage Market to discuss concerns about jobs, housing, and childcare. The choice of location and participants from different regions reflected Lee's intention to promote regional harmony. Lee will continue his campaign on Friday in Jeollabuk-do province, visiting the cities of Iksan and Jeonju. Shin Ha-young, Arirang News.
The Conservative Party candidate Kim Moon-soo was back in Seoul after his 3-day tour of the Southeast. As he rolled out his visions on various issues, including education, the controversy over the martial law incident seems to be far from over. Our correspondent Kim Do-yeon reports.
Returning to Seoul on Thursday after a 3-day tour of the Southeast, People Power Party presidential candidate Kim Moon-soo kept a low profile, with no major rallies, possibly taking time to regroup at his campaign headquarters. But attention quickly turned to a familiar issue, the legacy of impeached former President Yoon Suk-yeol and his declaration of martial law. Kim, at a press conference, issued a second public apology.
So I sincerely and respectfully apologize to those struggling to make a living outside of the capital region, to many whose lives have become more difficult, to those feeling weighed down or disheartened, and to all affected by the deepening divisions in public opinion.
Kim was also asked about whether Yoon should be expelled from the party. He responded that the decision to leave rests solely with Yoon. That came after newly appointed interim leader Kim Yong-tae said in a morning interview that expulsion could be on the table and that he plans to personally suggest that Yoon step down. Some in the party agree, arguing that distancing from Yoon is critical to winning over undecided voters who are largely critical of the martial law controversy. Meanwhile, the PPP continued its attacks on rival Lee Jae-myung, this time by protesting outside the Supreme Court. The party accuses the Democratic Party of pressuring the judiciary branch after the Supreme Court ruled against Lee in his election violation case and sent it back to a lower court for a guilty verdict. The DP has since moved to summon Chief Justice Cho Lee-dae for a hearing, started pushing for a special probe, and is even reviewing a possible impeachment.
They say democracy is about the rule of law. But have you ever seen anything so absurd? A criminal threatening a judge, summoning a judge for a hearing, launching a special investigation into a judge, or even trying to impeach a judge. Have you ever heard of such madness?
On the policy front, Kim marked Teachers' Day by unveiling his education pledges, including bringing AI into classrooms and restoring teachers' authority, saying excessive student protections have weakened discipline, while also strengthening public education. He also appealed his diplomatic skills as he met interim U.S. Ambassador Joseph Yoon. While the discussion remains private, Kim's chief of staff said they talked candidly about the Korean Peninsula and tariff issues. 김도현, Arirang News.
Also on the campaign trail, Reform Party candidate Lee Jae-myung sat down with students at Seoul National University of Education in light of Teachers' Day today. The talks took place over lunch as he continued his campus cafeteria outreach to college students. Earlier today, he announced prison reform, proposing inmates participate in higher value labor, such as machinery assembly and digital operations, rather than tasks like sawing and cleaning. He added such labor would serve to raise the standard of economic and social contribution by those incarcerated. Meanwhile, in response to inquiry about a coalition with the main conservative camp, he condemned those seeking, quote, political engineering. As the country prepares to elect its next president, one particular theme is consistent across all major campaigns, though their approaches may differ: the economy. We now turn to our economics correspondent Moon Hae-ryun for this topic. Hae-ryun, the economy does seem to take a central role in the race just like in the past, but anything worth noticing this time?
So South Korea is currently grappling with a slowing economic growth and global uncertainty stemming from U.S. trade policies. Recent data has shown that the country's economy shrank in the first quarter of the year, and economic institutions at home and abroad are revising down their economic projections for South Korea this year. As a result, both candidates are presenting themselves as the one best equipped to stabilize the economy and prepare for long-term competitiveness. But beyond that, experts point out something very strategic, not just what the candidates are promising, but how they're presenting it.
What voters should pay attention to isn't just the substance of the pledges, but the level of priority they're given. Where a candidate places an issue, whether it ranks first or 10th, tells us a great deal about what they're really focused on.
So when AI shows up as Lee Jae-myung's #1 pledge and as Kim Moon-soo's second, it sends a clear message about what they each see as central to Korea's economic future.
Now, let's talk about that. So how do their AI strategies compare?
So both candidates are currently proposing to invest 100 trillion Korean won, approximately $71 billion, signaling the scale of their ambitions. But the way they plan to use that funding is quite different.
We need to take a look at what role our national communities should play in preparing for an AI-driven society.
For the initial takeoff, we need to pour in concentrated funding and scout top talent from around the world.
Lee Jae-myung emphasizes public access. His AI for All initiative would offer citizens free advanced AI services, including a Korean-made version of ChatGPT. He also pledges to secure over 50,000 high-performance GPUs and establish a national AI data cluster. Meanwhile, Kim Moon-soo proposes a public-private fund to foster AI unicorn firms and expand industry talent. And he has very specific targets for talent. He plans to train 200,000 young AI professionals through expanded graduate programs and software-centered universities. In terms of regulation, they overlap in principle. Both agree that Korea's current regulatory framework is lagging behind. Lee wants to use special exemptions to help AI-convergent industries grow more quickly. Kim, on the other hand, talks about aligning AI regulation with global standards and conducting impact assessments before new rules are introduced. It's a recognition that if Korea wants to compete with the likes of the US or China, it can't afford red tape that slows down innovation. And worth mentioning there, although less prominent in the polls, is Lee Jae-myung, the former People Power Party leader, now running as a third-party candidate. His AI vision calls for a dramatic reduction in state intervention and wants market-driven AI innovation, with stronger digital sovereignty and open-source infrastructure at the core. His stance appeals to younger, more tech-literate voters, but lacks the large-scale public investment strategies the other two are promising.
Now let's move to another key area of concern, that is trade. Do they differ there too?
Very much so. So trade actually centers around Kim Moon-soo's first pledge, and he's proposing a reset of Korea's trade strategy, starting with an immediate South Korea-US summit and new negotiations on tariffs. It's a very proactive, outward-facing plan. Lee Jae-myung is more focused on domestic resilience. While he acknowledges the need to adapt to the global economic order, he doesn't emphasize alliances or trade pacts in the same way. Instead, he prioritizes homegrown innovation and economic self-reliance in line with his vision of building a more robust domestic economy that's less vulnerable to external shocks. Lee Jae-myung again takes a different line. He supports a decentralized, tech-led foreign trade approach, advocating for the use of blockchain in customs, logistics, and trade settlement to reduce dependence on geopolitical dynamics.
Thank you for the report, Hye-ryun.
Thank you for having me.
Trade officials of the Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation kicked off their two-day meeting in Korea's Jeju today against the backdrop of tougher trade conditions in light of U.S. tariffs. Our foreign affairs correspondent Bae Yoon-ji has the latest.
Top trade officials from 21 Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation member states, including the U.S. and China, have gathered on Jeju Island, ahead of the APEC Leaders Summit later this year. Led by South Korea's Minister for Trade Chung In-gyu, this is the first time in 20 years that the country is hosting the APEC Trade Ministers meeting.
I hope today's MRT meeting will lay a solid foundation for dialogue and collaboration to overcome the political and economic challenges as well as uncertainties that we encounter.
On the sidelines of the event, Chung held a bilateral meeting with China's top trade envoy Lee Chang and also sat down for talks with U.S. Trade Representative Jamieson Greer on Thursday evening. Greer is also set to meet South Korea's Minister of Trade, Industry and Energy An Deok-gun on Friday. The two officials last met in Washington 3 weeks ago, where South Korea requested exemptions from reciprocal tariffs while offering cooperation on shipbuilding and energy. Both sides are currently working to produce a package of deals to remove new U.S. tariffs before the July 8th deadline, when the 90-day pause on reciprocal tariffs is lifted. This year's event especially drew a lot of attention as major APEC member countries are seeking trade deals with the United States after President Trump announced a sweeping set of tariffs in April. With trade officials from the U.S. and China both here in Jeju, a meeting between them on Thursday afternoon was also closely watched, as this could be seen as a potential move to make further progress to address trade friction. This comes after the world's two largest economies agreed last weekend in Geneva to temporarily lower most tariffs in a bid to defuse the trade war. 배은지, Arirang News, Jeju.
Today, May 15th is Teacher's Day here in South Korea. And at one special school, students from a North Korean background whose guardians went to great lengths to offer them a new lease on life are sharing their own gratitude. Our Kim Jong-sil has the story.
At first glance, it looks like any other Teacher's Day celebration in South Korea. Students handing over carnations, writing thank you notes, and singing songs for their teachers. But at this school, those small gestures carry a different weight. Hangyeole Middle and High in Gyeonggi-do Province is the only school in South Korea dedicated to students from North Korean backgrounds, whether they arrived themselves or were born to defectors, sometimes even in third countries along the way. Here at Hangyeole School, where all the students come from North Korean backgrounds, Teacher's Day may seem like any other, but it also reflects how they're adjusting to life here in the South.
It wouldn't be fun if they knew, so we planned it all in secret. That made it way better.
These teachers honestly feel like lifesavers to me. I don't usually get to thank them, so this was my chance.
It's more than a surprise event. It's a milestone in their journey of adapting to a new culture and life.
I hope this stays with them as a good memory. And maybe one day they'll pass it on to their own students.
With 115 students enrolled, 31 in the middle school, Hangyeole offers more than academics. Teachers here often step in as mentors and guardians, helping students bridge two very different worlds.
We follow the national curriculum, but also help students adjust, socially, emotionally, and for the future. Some still speak with a North Korean accent, but they're finding their place here with confidence.
Named after the word for one people, Hangyeole is more than just a school. It's a place where students with North Korean backgrounds begin to shape new lives. For them, this is one of many moments helping to build that life in the South. Kim Jong-sil, Arirang News.
Peace talks are scheduled for Thursday in Istanbul, hoping to end the war between Russia and Ukraine. That's been dragging on for over 3 years. But a meeting between Putin and Zelensky looks unlikely. Lee Jae-myung has more.
After remaining silent on who's headed to Istanbul for peace talks with Ukraine, the Kremlin has finally announced the list of officials taking part. The delegation will be led by presidential aide Vladimir Medinsky, who was present at the first attempt at peace talks in Istanbul back in March 2022. Along with Medinsky, Deputy Foreign Minister Mikhail Galuzin, Deputy Defense Minister Alexander Fomin, and the chief of Russia's military intelligence agency, Igor Kostyakov, will also be at the talks. Not on the list, though, is Russian President Vladimir Putin, who many speculated could be involved in direct talks. Despite a much-anticipated sit-down between Putin and Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky, no such talks appear to be on the horizon. With Putin seemingly out of the picture, U.S. President Donald Trump has also decided not to go to Istanbul. According to Reuters on Wednesday, citing a Trump administration official, Trump has decided to skip the peace talks. The U.S. leader has said over the past week that he was considering coming to mediate talks, raising hopes for a trilateral summit between the leaders of the U.S., Russia, and Ukraine. Zelensky had called on both leaders to come to Istanbul and also said the presence of Trump could have a major impact on the negotiations. Lee Jae-myung, Arirang News.
U.S. President Donald Trump was in Doha as part of his Middle East trip, where he has sealed major deals with Qatar for defense and the economy. Shin Se-byuk has the details.
U.S. President Donald Trump, currently on a 4-day Gulf tour, signed a series of major security and economic agreements worth at least $1.2 trillion with Qatar on Wednesday. This came after Trump signed a similar multi-billion-dollar deal with Saudi Arabia the day before. According to the White House, the package aims to boost U.S. exports and attract foreign investment in exchange for enhanced security cooperation. The package includes a record-breaking deal for American aircraft maker Boeing to supply Qatar Airways.
From Boeing, that's the largest order of jets in the history of Boeing. That's pretty good. It's over $200 billion, but $160 in terms of the jets. That's fantastic. So that's a record, Kelly.
The White House said the plane contract between the two countries is expected to support some 154,000 American jobs annually. Additionally, U.S. energy engineering firm McDermott has entered into a partnership with Qatar Energy to develop critical energy infrastructure through 7 projects worth $8.5 billion. Defense deals were also part of the package. Raytheon secured a contract worth $1 billion to bolster Qatar's drone defense capabilities. And General Atomics signed an agreement worth $2 billion to supply the Gulf state with unmanned military aircraft. The White House added that both sides signed a letter of intent to strengthen security cooperation, including support for Qatar's air and maritime defense systems and burden sharing at the Al Udeid Air Base, which is the largest U.S. military base in the region. Trump is set to conclude his trip on Thursday with a final stop in the United Arab Emirates. Shin Se-byuk, Arirang News.
South Korea's Data Protection Authority has fined Chinese e-commerce platform Temu for transferring user data overseas without prior notification. The Personal Information Protection Commission fined Temu some 1.37 billion won, or about $980,000 on Thursday. Temu shared personal information such as names, addresses, purchase histories, and customs codes required for customs clearance to companies in 10 countries, including China and Singapore. Under the Personal Information Protection Act, if a company needs to entrust or store personal information overseas to fulfill a contract, it must either disclose this in its privacy policy or notify the user by email. Early summer like it is off a bit with some rain today. This rain will continue mainly in the south tomorrow. In particular, heavy rain will be concentrated around Jeju Island and the south coast. In the mountainous areas of Jeju Island, there will be strong rain of around 20 to 30 millimeters per hour. Showers are forecast around the central parts of the country tomorrow afternoon. The amount of rainfall is not large, with around 5 to 20 millimeters, but there's a possibility of sudden heavy rain or gusty winds, thunder, lightning, and hail. Tomorrow morning's Seoul and Chuncheon will start up at 16 degrees Celsius, Busan and Gyeongju at 17 degrees. Highs will move up to 24 degrees in Seoul and Chuncheon, 20 degrees in Busan. Clear and warm spring weather will come back on Sunday throughout the country. That's all for Korea. Here are the weather conditions around the world. That is Newscenter for tonight. Thank you for watching. A panel session up next.